This is a Play Your Way network presentation. Get the full story at PlayLifeYourWay.com. Previously on the Play Your Way podcast.
Number 3 comes in with my last insult to the pop movie franchises, Marvel Studios, in which we saw this all when they made the first Guardians, was Guardians of the Galaxy 2. The repeat of the first one that you saw the first time you watched it back in 2015.
I'm not going to let you sit here and name that movie. Are you really trying to corrupt the system, or do you legit think that that was a terrible film?
It was another pop movie. Like, I wasn't surprised by any one thing in that at all. I was not surprised by any, like...
You're crazy, man. You're crazy. Crazy,
I saw it the first time when we watched Guardians of the Galaxy 1.
You some sort of fucking hipster? Like,
you
like all things universally loved?
Can we
How do you feel about Forrest Gump?
They came, they podcasted, and left you wanting more. So this time, they're back to finish you off. It's time to take a deep dive. The Player Way.
Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, with all due respect, this is your boy BK. It's on once again, Patron once again. It's not the main podcast, it's the side chick podcast that we call The Deep Dive, The Player Way, episode 29.5. And we're about to go in because we got some interesting responses based on Derreck in particular's top 10. And it kind of caused a conversation in the middle of that episode. You heard a little bit of excerpt before we got started. And before I go any further, shout out to my co-captains Derreck and Nate. And now shouts out to our guest for today. A little about this guy. He started off as a hip-hop artist. Back when he was in college, he did his own promotion and marketing deliverables. And they were so on point and on pulse with the trends at the time and slightly ahead of what was going on that it got the attention of his competition. And he ended up making his competition his clients. And so he started doing that and said, well, I'm doing such a good job at this, I can do the music and do the marketing. And pretty soon he started doing nothing but the marketing. Right. And after he finished college, he reinvented himself and his business model. He's a prolific photographer, videographer, graphic artist, and just, in my opinion, a master creative. I've worked with him on a miniseries called The State of Play, where he brought all of his opinions about the business and how to improve as an entrepreneur in our business and just as an overall professional. And he has a podcast in development called The Dreamer's Blueprint. So with all due respect and all the adulation necessary, everybody show your love for Mr. J. Daniel.
How you guys doing today, man? Listen, you make that sound so much better than I do. Like, anytime someone asks me, I'm just like, I do this photo thing, and then I also do graphics, and I used to rap. But that made me feel like somebody. Yeah, how you guys doing?
Well,
I'm
you
J.
are somebody, brother. In the words of Steve Harvey. Does I bring you out or does I bring you out?
You did, man. You did that. You did that. I'm come out like Bernie Mac around here. No, I don't.
Exactly.
I don't want to do my Bernie Mac.
Go ahead and talk to our people.
Yeah. So look, I'm so excited and happy to be here on the Player Way podcast. One, because it gives me a chance to say the Player Way without looking like an idiot, because I say it everywhere I go. Like, I'm in the movie theater line ordering popcorn. The Player Way. Like, it makes no sense how often I say that. And so yeah, I'm loving being here. I love what you guys have been doing. Even last week's episode, I do love it, and I love that it's polarizing, right? So movies are, and that's another thing. I'm just happy to be able to talk something that's not graphic design and photography for the first time, so I may keep you here too long. But movies are something that's so personal to us because, like, it's our personal taste and what we like and what we believe in, and you know, you guys kind of have a good formula of balancing each other out. Where when you line up, you really line up, and when you're off, it's like magic because the drama between, like last week when Derreck's like, Jesus, Nate. Oh, wait, hold on. Who said Alien? Yeah, he's like, what do you think of Titanic? It's like, do you just hate everything that everyone loves? And I was thinking, like, geez, man, what are your thoughts on pizza? Like,
Yeah, it was Derreck. Right? So Derreck has he's building his brand as corrupting the system, and so
he's the contrarian.
But see, what's great about Derreck is he's not a contrarian on purpose. He is a habitual line stepper, as Charlie Murphy would have said. Rest in peace.
He steps over the line habitually.
Yeah, Derreck is like, I expect perfection in my entertainment, and rightfully so. These people spend millions upon billions building brands, building franchises, and they continually make these missteps in not understanding what audiences really want out of a movie experience, and that's what today's episode is about. Is about looking at some of the films. We talked about some of the films that made our top 10 worst were expected to be there. So like we had The Mummy, and we had Transformers: The Last Night, and we had Baywatch, and we had Boo, A Medea Halloween, and Valerian and the City
can I interrupt you
of
on
a Thousand Planets. Go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
Okay, here's the thing. I watched what's the word I'm looking for here? I watched Baywatch, right? And my wife and I came out of it, and it was like, everyone is going to hate this movie, but it had some merit. There were some funny parts. Like, okay, here's the truth. I think that The Rock, believe it or not, is a world-class actor. And I also think Zac Efron is a world-class actor. Like, he's played these comedic roles, but like even in Neighbors, the first Neighbors, when he's going through his villain phase and he's kind of in the room just ruminating over everything. And I remember thinking, geez, this is a performance, and
he's doing a great job.
Right,
like when he plays he does a good job of playing the fact that people think he's fake to begin with. So he plays on that guy that you met back in college. You're like, hey, guy, how you doing?
Exactly.
Man? And then you realize he's a dirtbag behind closed doors. You're like, oh my goodness.
Exactly.
And like in the theater, you get that feeling of, I know a guy. I know like that
dude. Like Channing Tatum has that. Channing Tatum has that same ability where it's like, I read an article from him. He was like, people thought I couldn't act so much that I feel like I'll never be able to, and I've been on this quest to learn how to act. So he's going to perpetually be trying to figure out how to do it. And so I don't know if I would put Baywatch in that top 10, but I'll let you finish your list. Keep going.
Here's what I think about Baywatch, and we'll get into this a little bit later.
Okay.
But some of the things that made the list because, again, it goes into not keeping your fingers on the pulse of what audiences expect and what they want.
That's true.
Baywatch wasn't a bad movie experience. It was just a bad blockbuster film experience. It was placed incorrectly, the wrong time of the year.
Yes.
And it also had the wrong placement. They should have put it on Netflix or Hulu or something. It would have done great there.
I can see that.
Like there was like a film that came out on Netflix around Halloween called like The Babysitter.
Okay.
And and it was about like this babysitter who she's a part of like this cult, and she's got to kill a virgin in order for them to get eternal life. And so they go to kill a virgin, and it turns out they also need the blood of an innocent. So she ends up having to hunt down the kid that she keeps all the time. And it turns out she's been like kind of breeding him to be the innocent they would kill at one time, and he kind of gets the better of him.
And this is on Netflix.
And it's on Netflix. It's great. Great film. It's hilarious. It's great to watch. It's a great, Saturday afternoon, nothing else to watch, show hole. I want to watch a horror film with a little bit of comedy. It's great. Baywatch would have done great there.
Got you.
But
okay.
To put it, there's so many mediums, so many ways to get a film out nowadays. You don't have to just pay all this money and put it in the theater. And so that's kind of why some of those, I think Boo and Medea Halloween is the same situation. I think you put Boo and Medea Halloween out on the small screen, and it does a whole lot better.
Or you write that film and then you think, oh my God, this is what I'm making, and you put it in the trash bin. Like let's be honest.
Well, we know why he made it. We know why he made it because it's a money grab.
Definitely.
It was a money grab film.
But that's hurting.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that's what we're here to discuss today because that
exactly. There we go. We're getting there. Okay, and then there were some more polarizing films that made the top 10, like Justice League, Alien Covenant, Thor Ragnarok, Wonder Woman. I couldn't believe Derreck said that one, and All Eyes on Me.
No, that's fair.
So so here's what we're going to talk about. What are the things that make a great film? Let's start there, and then let's talk about the things that compromise those visions and make them not so great. So let's start with you. In your opinion, you're a creative. You're this guy who I can test, honestly, like, I'm a great graphic artist.
Yes.
Nathan is a great graphic artist. You have the ability to kind of bridge the gap between the two different types of artists that Nathan and I are.
Okay.
I'm a very good like conceptual guy in terms of coming up with concepts as far as campaigns and things like that, and looking at identity and branding and things like that and marketing. And then Nate is just like, he's just a consummate professional artist.
Yes.
Like, you tell him what to do and he can create it.
Right.
And you put the two of us together when we used to travel. It's what clients loved, is you put the two of us together and we make both the left brain and the right brain, and we have these great deliverables. You in one body are both of those minds at the same time. Sometimes I can tell that those things are at conflict, and is what keeps you from just putting it out. You're kind of like, you remind me a lot of Dr. Dre.
Okay.
Like you got Detox in
waiting.
the can already,
Right.
but you're like, no, this is never going to be good enough. So that being said, now you have an opportunity to talk about somebody else's art and what you walk away with in a movie experience. For you, what makes a great movie experience when you leave the theater and you're with your wife and you're like, man, that was great.
Okay, so and she and I have this debate all the time, right? So for my wife, it's plot. She's very plot driven. Like, what a movie is about is very important. It can be great up until the resolution. If the resolution was trash, she scraps it. For me, I am more so character. I need to care about the people that I'm seeing on screen. I can't connect to what you're going through if I don't care about who you are as a person, right? So, and since we're talking blockbusters, like, what makes a good movie for me, like the biggest thing in the world right now is the MCU. And this idea of now we're on the cusp of Infinity War. And I think what feels important to everyone is, it's another Avengers film. I don't think people realize, no, you've been following and falling in love with these characters for 10 years now. So the truth of the matter is, Avengers Infinity War could be about Tony Stark losing his debit card, and you'd be just as invested because at this point, you love him, right? And so that's how I feel about films. Like, if I can't connect to the characters on screen, I don't care how pretty it is. Well, hold on, let me think. Occasionally, you can win me over with cinematography, and you can kind of win me over with some good camera tricks. But if I don't care about the people on screen, I don't care about any of it, right? And so that's the main thing I need to go, okay, I enjoyed that. Because, my favorite thing to do as a kid, and I'm pretty sure you can relate, is when we watch cartoons, we go, like, we were children of the 80s. So you watch Ninja Turtles, and then you go and buy Ninja Turtles, and you continue the story at home. And I think now with the social media age where everyone's wanting to reach out and connect with people as much as possible, you're falling in love with these characters on screen, and you're feeling like, I want to spend more time with them. I want to live with Tony Stark a little bit longer. I want to live with, a Quentin Tarantino character a little bit longer. So
I know what you're getting at.
And so that's, oh my God, Quentin, the news I just heard about Quentin Tarantino last night.
Yes.
Jesus, a Star Trek movie, Beak?
Star Trek.
By the way, everyone.
A Star Trek movie.
I call BK Beak, and he's never stopped me. It's just like,
cool.
Beak.
I'm cool with it.
But yeah, like a Quentin Tarantino directed Star Trek sounds crazy, bro. Like,
it sounds crazy. I like that you said it sounds crazy. It doesn't necessarily sound good.
I don't know how to. My mind
crazy.
I can't rectify those thoughts.
I can't relegate it either. I'm like
I can't.
This sounds like a sketch on Mad TV.
Yes, it sounds like, how like you want something to happen and then people tell you it's going to happen and you're like, wait, did I really want that?
You're like, wait. I don't know. Wait a minute. Let me think about this for a second, because it could be terrible. It could be really, really
and it
bad.
Can hurt his career because he's always pretty much created content that he created, he directed. I've never seen him pick up a franchise and try his hand at it. And that this late in the game, when he's releasing movies less frequently, and arguably people have had, like, all of them have been polarizing. People liked or didn't like Django Unchained. Same with Inglourious Basterds. I personally love Death Proof. I watch Death Proof twice a month, right? But a lot of people hate that film. Yeah. So to take something that's so beloved, which goes back to what I said, like Star Trek, you have characters people have fallen in love with. They've been watching and invested in these characters for decades now. And to take it and try a new spin on it and it doesn't work out could create a bad blockbuster experience. And that is so, I'm nervous for it, man. I'm really like...
Yeah, and the other thing that I look at it is, obviously Star Trek is a film franchise ready-made, right?
Big box.
Okay, So Quentin Tarantino is not a sequel guy.
No.
People die at the end of his films. Like, that's how
Important
films end
people.
for him. They always end in tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I don't know. That's what I'm worried about. Is I'm like, oh, who is he going to kill off? I mean, we've already seen Spock die in a film, so I don't know. But getting back to what you were saying, yeah, I mean, these are all the conversations. The problem with studios is we fell in love with characters. It used to be less about plot and all about character. Let's go back to the Ninja Turtles analogy. Power Rangers, Ninja Turtles, Voltron, Transformers. None of these shows were about plot.
Not at all.
Yet this is every single one of those things I've mentioned have been either in development for a film franchise or have already been made into a live film franchise. And the problem with it is there's no plot to go on.
Right.
Because there's little to no plot. It was all about developing the characters, giving them their own personalities and their attitudes, and making them relatable to people. And so we're in an age where studios are cool with creating very disposable characters. Yeah. That goes to the whole, when we talk about comic books, we're talking about villains, and we got a lot of disposable villains.
Yes.
And so if we're talking about character, I'm very much so in the same neighborhood. So let's make a list. So number one, character.
Okay.
What we're saying right now, if you're listening and you're keeping a list, the number one thing is character development. Character development in our age, we're post 9/11. We're a post 9/11 society. So we understand what danger is. We understand that we are touchable, and we understand how people react in crisis situation because it's happening more frequently now.
Exactly.
And so when you have a lot of films in today's day and age that deal with conflict and crisis, when people react in ways that don't make sense and is not relatable, we detach ourselves from the films. So you look at a film like, let's take Transformers: The Last Night. And
why did you start there?
There's monsters all over the planet, and they're destroying everything, and there's a little girl, and you allow her to be on the team to help fight the monsters.
Right. And it makes no sense. And then the truth is, she pops up, and so with that little girl, and they did it from the trailer. They play on your heartstrings because I think a lot of times when filmmakers make films, they don't show or tell anymore. They just rely on you to kind of fill in the blanks, right? So they go, all right, if we put a girl on screen and her face is kind of dirty and she's in a junkyard, you're gonna connect the dots and say, oh, she must have had a hard life. But the truth of the matter is, while that may be true if I'm walking past a person in real life, you still have to make me care about this person on screen. So when she's like, I have no one else but this robot, and my parents have died, and X, Y, and Z, that's all very sad stuff. But I'm thinking, dude, every lead actor in the Transformers series has had a personal robot at this point. So, and they die, right? Like, the only one who's made it through was Bumblebee. But with the exception of that, anyone who's ever gotten close, we've seen them kind of die off. And so you're playing on this thing of, oh, they're going to have sympathy for this little girl. But no, I need to know who this little chick is. Otherwise, she can get blown up by one of these robots. Because honestly, I'm more invested in the robots than I am any of the humans.
There we go. And you hit the nail right on the head. Because here's the thing. Okay, so it's a post-apocalyptic film is what The Last Night is about. It's the end of the line for all of us. Right. Okay, let's be real. If the whole planet is infested with giant robots that don't have real biological systems, not really, and have no reason to be subservient to human beings, which they don't,
they wouldn't be.
Then here's the reality: we're dead.
Yes, that's it.
So we need to see us subjugated.
Yes.
We need to see, for example, the thing that people do love about the X-Men films, and not so much the X-Men films, the X-Men story,
go for it,
is that classically humans have outnumbered mutants. Yes. And even though they are super powered, there's only so many of them. And especially after that mutant virus came out in the comic books, there was even fewer of them. So it was very viable that we would be able to outnumber them, seize them, and take them down, especially when we built a weapon that is not biological, that can withstand pain and withstand damage.
Right.
Yet now we have a reason to care about Days of Future Past and for them to go back to the past, because there's no way for them to win in the present time. So we're on board with this film as long as they don't mess it up throughout the plot.
Exactly.
And so it's the same thing with Transformers. Is like, one thing that Nate loves to see a realistic resolution. Like, this is actually what would happen. What is not great is when Mark Wahlberg is yelling at Grimlock, telling him to throw up a police car.
That was terrible.
You know, it's like, why is he listening to this man? First of all, he's less developed than the other Autobots, and now he's
obedient. It makes no sense.
Human.
Right.
He's eating cars, but he won't eat a human. It's weird.
Makes no sense.
It's just kind of weird.
We personify it too much. Like, the Transformers, the biggest problem since its inception, has been this needs to be like, and basically what you're saying is you make the robots background characters, and they're just kind of plot development for the humans, right? But at some point, maybe not the first film, but the second film, Transformers should have no longer been about humans. Like,
nope.
I mean, in the sense of the humans should be the plot point. It should be a war for, all right, the Decepticons have this control, and the Autobots are trying to fight against them, and we're watching those characters go against it. And I understand why, right? Because that would then be a $1 trillion film to be able to kind of render that and kind of create these robots throughout. But it's just, none of us are sitting down in the theater wanting to see Mark Wahlberg be the hero of Transformers, because we know that realistically that would not happen. We know realistically if every dog on the planet today decided, you know what, I'm going to attack humans, right? We'd have a problem. Like, that's just because there's no reasoning. There's no reasoning with them. There's no rationale. Yeah. So when you're in the theater, and amongst other things, I'm watching Transformers the last night this year, and the nerd in me is like, why does the aspect ratio keep changing? Like, it from moment
Derek
to
kept
moment,
saying this.
moment to moment. So I'm distracted by that, and then I'm like, wait, why do I care about Mark Wahlberg? Why do I care about? I mean, Cade. I'll try to use his name. You know, tell me what's going on with Optimus. I need to know why Bumblebee can talk now, but he's no longer talking. Like, because in the last film he talked. So if you're gonna take me in that direction, follow through with it. If not, just don't. And so that's why I'm like, if you can't give me characters that I care about, I don't care how pretty the robots look. I own video games if I want to see pretty robots. Like, they're cool games I can play at home to have that same experience. And it's just that thing, man. And that was
to sweeten the deal for you. If you can't give me characters that I can relate to, if they need to react in the way that I would react, I need to see some character. It doesn't have to be every character, but there has to be at least one or two characters. When I watch the Avengers, for example, I need to see one character that I'm like, I get what this guy is going through. Okay, I'm with you. Right. You're my dude. And that's the point of ensemble films, is to find a character that you can relate to, and even if the rest of them suck, you're like, but I like that guy. So I'm cool with this film.
With that, when the rest of them suck or don't suck, your connection to that character influences and makes theirs better, because you're now enjoying seeing how your character that you relate to responds to the idiots around them, right?
Because that's how you feel when you're at work. Or when you're in a group project, or when you're on a team of people, and or if you're just in line at the movie theater, and you're like, this idiot over here,
they have the same snacks,
and everybody's looking at each other like, right? Exactly. Okay, so it's not just me.
Like, they have the same snacks that they've had since the 1920s. It's popcorn and drink. Pick one and let's go, man. Like, come on, this is the last thing in our entertainment system that starts on time. Movie theaters are still by appointment. Right? Yes. So if I'm there at 9 o'clock and my film starts at 9:10, I don't need you to decide whether you want a large or a medium popcorn, because it's popcorn. Get it? Let's go.
Exactly. Especially since they're all larges now anyway. All right, so that's number one. What's now kind of developed, so number one is character development. Second is plot development, because we've kind of gotten into that. So again, in our society, there's all types of crisis. So let's take Alien Covenant, for example. Okay. All right, so Alien Covenant, the problem with this film when we talked about it in the summer is that it's a great premise of a film. We were all excited. In the words of Tyra Banks, we were all rooting for you. You know, and so we were all ready for this film to give us exactly what we wanted. We were ready. We were subjugated, ready for this. And then the plot insisted on being corrupted with all of these different, or should I say the writers of this film and the studio allowed the film's plot to be very convoluted. Yes. And things to happen that don't make any sense. For example, I like to say, in life, yes, there are lots of coincidences, and those are the things that give us purpose. Right. And those are the things that are we're like, wow, isn't that interesting that happened at that exact same time? Because if this didn't happen, then this wouldn't have happened. But at the same time, very rarely is there something. Okay, let me take this back. When it comes to those coincidences, however, they're very personal. Yes. These things don't apply to everyone. Like, for example, not everyone who suffered. Let me find a different tragedy to talk about. Let's go to Oklahoma City bomb. Okay. Every single person who went through this tragedy doesn't have the same exact story about how they came in. One lady talks about leaving her kid at daycare that morning and then hearing what's going on and coming back. Another one, her husband was in the building and he works there every single day and she's been calling trying to get through. So, like, everyone has different perspectives. So when you have a story where everybody goes to sleep and the main captain burns up before the movie even starts, but we saw him in the marketing, right? And he was an A-list actor. And then if everything that happens from the movie there forward happened only because there was an accident, and then there was a solar flare or some whatever it is, and then they just happened to land on this exact planet. We need more to engineer why they got to this planet in particular that was a trap.
Yes, exactly.
In the words of General Akbar from Star Wars. Right. You know, it's go on that for a little bit. Tell me what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I had the same feeling while watching the film. Like, I'm watching this and I'm like, okay, you know, the whole thing is they were in space heading in a total different direction. So everything that's happening to them, they're reacting to. And if you set that up well, that can be awesome, right? Because it's like, you've made me invested in the fact that they're on this journey. They're trying to get to where they're trying to go, and something sideswipes them. But when you have to scale it back and you think, okay, geez, there was and I can't remember his name now, Fassbender's character. He's on this. He just happens to be on this planet. He just happens to be creating the new version of the Xenomorph. He just happens to be crazy and he's working on a plan for something that may never happen, that happened perfectly for him. Like, so here's another thing. If you tell that story from his perspective from the very beginning. Do it. Then it all makes sense because you can set the trap of he created this plan for it to get there. But if you tell it from the passengers, then it's just like, geez, man, this was a no-win situation from the gate. And I can't get invested because everything they're doing, the whole movie's chaos. Everything they're responding to, no contingency.
Thank you. Okay, so from David's character, so from David's perspective, he had no idea this planet was going to land here. He was going, not planet, but this ship was going to land there. And he's like, oh, I got lucky. No,
he's too prepared for luck.
No, it's too prepared for that. We're ready to hear. First of all, why do they have to crash land on this planet? Well, not crash land, but why do they have to get deviated? Why not see a beacon and come to this planet?
To the planet, right?
Why not the destination be this planet?
Or just get
not
that's not what you said.
Or the coordinates somehow get messed up why not the solar flare or whatever the thing was be started by him?
Right.
He's the reason why it happened. You know, there's just too many things that had to happen in order for this to fall into place. And that's not the story we deserve.
It's not. And I think they fall into the trap of, okay, like everything you just said could fall up under predictable. Like, all right, they were set out for this planet and he's there or he's over. But you can't substitute predictable for something that's not plausible, right? So it's like, if there's low-hanging fruit, but there's a better story attached to it, just get the low-hanging fruit. and then tell the better story. Because as moviegoers, we're going to see a blockbuster. This isn't an art house film. We're not necessarily going in there to ruminate and ponder over life, right? Like, we're going to watch a very simple story that we can connect to, and it has some complexities to it. So if the whole story was, we're set out to go to this planet, and tragedy happens when we get there. Take, for instance, to go back maybe a year, 2 years now, Interstellar. Like, they're going to all these different planets, and they get to one planet with Matt Damon, and Matt Damon's a nut job, and he kills someone, and that's great. They plan to go there, you know, and it still happened, and we still accepted it. It's like, okay, cool, simple enough. He got there, something went wrong, he nutted up, and that's that. They tried to go, all right, we're going to make the whole thing spin on his head, and it all happened to him. And it's like, yeah, but we can't follow it. It's not emotionally gripping, like a car crash, right? Car crash is emotionally gripping because of what happens to the people in it. But because we know that that's just the luck of the draw, that story's not compelling. The idea of...
Well, and I'll take it a step further. Car crashes are compelling because we know that they don't happen by accident. We call them an accident because classically we've all lied and said, if you've ever been in charge of, if you've ever been at fault for an accident, you have, I put folded money down that you have lied about why you crashed into the back of that car. Right. Well, everything was good, but then my brakes gave out, or I was all good. Well, were you looking at your phone? No, never. I never text and drive. Like there's always some reason. And what, like, let's take the movie Crash, for example, a beautiful film where we see how the crashes ended up. Nothing was an accident in the first place. Everything kind of came together based on the actions and the motivations of people. So what we think are crashes and conflicts are really our attitudes that were ultimately going to end us up there at some point at one or another. And all it takes is for another person to be in the way of us. Okay, that makes sense. So that's the problem with Alien Covenant is there's nothing there. And Wonder Woman, to be devil's advocate, is of a similar situation where if this guy from World War II hadn't just happened to end up at Themyscira, she never ends up in it. Wonder Woman she never comes out, and therefore a man is ultimately responsible for Wonder Woman coming of age. And even in that and it's not even heroic because he's not responsible in a way of this was my plan. No one can take ownership over any of the things that happen in that movie, with the exception of maybe Ares, because on his side of the story, he's constructing and he's kind of moving around all these warriors and causing this war. Right. Everyone else, Steve Trevor just happened to be running, and he just happened to go through a portal, or not a portal, but a barrier, and he ends up on this planet, this world of Amazons, and they just happen to join and engage. And so you're right. It's like, geez, man, how much of this is, like, if he just simply hit a strong wave, he's in a plane. If he hit an air current and blew just a little bit that way, we don't have the story of Wonder Woman. That's crazy, man. I'd never thought of it that way. You just ruined Wonder Woman for me. Thanks. And I think that's what Derreck was trying to get at. I think that's what Derreck was getting at. And I had the similar thing too with when it comes to plot development. Is that if Steve Trevor doesn't have sex with Wonder Woman, she never believes in love for the rest of her life, and then she doesn't have a reason to join the Justice League. So a man is the reason that Wonder Woman is Wonder Woman. And I think that's messed up. I think that's totally against what she's supposed to be about. Even into Justice League, where they mention Steve Trevor in that, she's kind of having these feelings for Batman. It's like, we don't need romance for Wonder Woman. Let's leave that for like the sequel. Yeah. Her origin doesn't have to have sex and all of these other things. She needs to be the strong and independent woman. And let her do her thing. I mean, even if you think about the first Iron Man, there's no love interest in the original Iron Man. No. I mean, there's this thing about him and Pepper Potts, but it's such a backdrop. Right. You don't really get into him and Pepper Potts until the second film.
Exactly. And by that point, you care enough about Tony that you care that he has someone. But... And that's
look at you. Look at you. You better go ahead. That's why I got you on the player way.
The player way. But it's true because that's I could say the same about Captain America now. He's now dating Peggy's niece or whatever. And I'm like,
oh, so gross.
And in my mind, I'm like, guys, the more compelling story and the story that you've been telling here, like there's this weird triangle/quadrangle of Captain America, Scarlet Witch, Hawkeye, who's now married, so you can take him out, and even the Hulk, right? There's this weird triangle of they all kind of have a chemistry here, and then you give me this girl out of nowhere speaking at a funeral, and she's like, yeah, I'm her niece, and then they kiss. And it's like, where does this come from? We don't need this for Captain America.
Yeah.
Just let him be a hero.
Yeah.
Let him be the man, him be the man misplaced in time who doesn't have that connection because it further informs his character. The fact that he's now in now in a new time that he's not connected with, but he cares about people so much that he's still going to risk his life no matter what. We don't need him to fall in love to further make us believe that he would do that. Like, that's Captain America's core. That's his story.
You're getting to it. So number one was character development. Right. The second one was plot development, and the third is unnecessary elements being added into the film. God. So we kind of are starting to go into this other part of the story. So the first part we were talking about what makes a great film is plot development and character development. Right. Now the third on our list is now going toward the other end of the spectrum of what makes a movie terrible. And what makes a movie terrible is the injection of the things that directors feel make a great film. When a director projects themselves and what they've learned, when you can tell somebody went to film school, and so they're like, oh, well, in order for a film to work, there has to be a femme fatale or a love interest.
Yes.
And so it's like, okay, let's put a love interest into this story because that's what people want to see. But this is not that type of story. This is not Benjamin Button.
Right, exactly.
If we wanted to watch that, we went for that film. Your demographic, they love to see hot women, but we don't necessarily, like, for example, I loved in Iron Man 2 where you have Natasha around a lot, and you have him. She's obviously gorgeous. She's like this assistant, and Tony wants her, but there's always obviously something about her. And he comes out, and you find out she's untouchable.
Right, exactly.
Like, I love that. It's like, okay, yes, we can all relate to that. There's this woman at work that you love being around, and you love seeing her, but like you can't. You work with her,
I would just like
so you gotta keep it professional.
This is BK's point. This is totally Beak's point. I don't agree, and no, I'm joking.
I only have eyes for my wife.
I don't know I don't even work with anyone but my wife.
No, but I'm trying to help you out, man. I'm saying this lady is untouchable.
Definitely, they
because
all
you only have eyes for your woman.
They all are, BK. They all are.
Exactly.
And you know what? Okay, so and to speak to that, because when you say demographic, right? Like, it's so easy to say, because my wife and I, we have this discussion. She thinks that I hate love stories in movies. And I'm like, no, I just need them to be compelling. Like, to rewind a little bit, my favorite two films of last year, Moonlight and La La Land, and it's ironic that they became what they were, because those are two very compelling love stories to me. Like, I'm heartbroken at the end of La La Land, and I'm extremely happy at the end of Moonlight. And it's not because of, oh, a boy meet a girl, but it's the fact that you've told this story, and you've set up these odds, and you've placed all these things against these people. And in one case, they broke through it, and in one case, they succumbed to it. So if you can give me a love story that's compelling, I'm on board all day. But when you simply go, he's a guy, he has to have a girl, put them together, or he's a guy, he has to have a guy, whatever the case may be. Like I said, with all due respect, I don't want to leave any configuration out.
Yeah.
But if it's just there just as service to the idea, because sometimes it does feel like this is a macho film, but there's going to be women in the audience, so we got to make sure there's a love story. And I think in both of those cases, you're insulting your viewer. You're insulting women to think they can't like a movie unless there's a love story. You're insulting guys to think you can't like a movie unless there's explosions.
There you go.
And that kind of thinking.
It's this outdated. Outdated. Again, it goes back into we're in a society where conflict breeds intelligence.
Yes.
Because in nature, as our lizard brains, okay, they keep us safe, okay, and our amygdala, if you will. So, as animals, our base instincts are procreate, eat, and survive.
That's it.
Okay, conflict is what causes us to shift our priorities and add new needs to that, so that we can still meet our base instincts, eat, procreate,
Yep.
and survive. So back in the day, which was a Wednesday,
Always,
okay,
right.
we had the Ice Age, and that was a conflict, and that caused us to have to invent things so that we could do what we have to do. Then as we went along, then we had world wars,
Yes.
and we had the Holocaust, and we found other things that kind of colored in, and then we had the civil rights movements, and then we had Vietnam, and then we get over into September 11th, and now we got every other day a church bombing
Right.
or a club bombing or a shooting happening. And so what it's causing us is it causes us to have conversation about how we can survive as a culture and still meet our basal instincts without getting in the way of other people's basal instincts and needs as well.
Right.
And so I love stories that really get down to the nitty gritty of what real life is like, because when we see what real life is like, it teaches us things. For example, one of my favorite films of this year is Fences.
Yes.
And Fences was it this year? Let me look it up. I thought it came out this year.
No, I think Fences was last year. It was last year. It was last Oscar season. Yeah, because it was nominated.
Oh, it was. Yeah,
But still,
it was last Oscar.
But still, good stuff.
Okay, but let's go with Fences.
Yeah.
Let's go with Fences. Okay, Fences is a movie about what marriage is really like in that period of time for Black people.
Yes.
You know, we don't have as many options to date and move around and figuring out ways as we evolve as people. How do we interact with people? How do we handle our emotions while also being only having so many options in life?
Right.
I mean, that's what Denzel Washington's character story is about, is this man who obviously should have been in the National Baseball league. He should have been playing baseball on a national level, but because of the things holding him back, he couldn't. And now his son has the talent, but he's very distrusting of the world around him, and he wants his son. In one way, his son and his wife think that that he's holding him back because he's jealous of him, but that's not what it is. He's holding him back because he's got this pain in his gut. He keeps that baseball hanging out there because he knows that's the one thing he's really good at, and he could have done it big at, because he looks at the stats and he knows he did better than everyone else doing that. And we as creators understand that when we look at movie posters that we're like, really?
This is it?
That's what you went
Right.
with? I've done more than this 3 years ago, and I tired of that style a long time ago.
Right.
You know, or content that we're creating, we're like, man, I'm listening to this other podcast, and I'm like, man, really? These are the people that got the views? Like, I can do way better than that. We do better than that on our worst day. And so you look at this, what he's trying to do is he's trying to keep his son from feeling the same pain of knowing that he's good enough but never being able to be allowed. And so he's trying to make him say, look, stay in your place. This society wants you to be a guy at the grocery store. The society wants you to be in the military. The society wants you to be in these other places. So just do those things and you will be better off in life. But meanwhile, times are changing, and that's what his wife is signifying, that times are changing, and we have to be accepting that times are changing, and our kids want to do other things, and we got to give them opportunities, because there are opportunities for them. Yeah. And so there's a conflict of what is the right way in which to go in a family caught in this turmoil, and that they all love each other, but the times themselves are ripping them apart. Yeah. And my point in saying that is compelling.
100%, because that's one reading of it, and then people do have the more basis reading of he's trying to hold it. But any road that you decide to go down with Fences, which was just a power, like that film to me, like you said, it speaks about black love and black marriage in such a way that we can all kind of go, that's my granddad, that's my uncle, or that's guys that I know now. These ideas of I'm the man and this is what that means, and you're the, like, there's so much there, and it informs that experience. So even the idea of there is his wife and his kid are telling him things are different now. And they're saying this to a guy he's out of his prime, he's older. He'll never reap the benefits of what life took from him. Like, life had to take that opportunity for him to make it better for his son, because someone had to go, we have to change this. So he never gets to reap the benefit of that. And so we're in the theater just oh my god, just like chewing popcorn
Yes.
and just looking at this happen
Caught
on screen.
up. My wife, I didn't even watch it in theaters. I watched it at home, and I think that's the reason why I was thinking it came out this year. And my wife was getting ready for work, and she was like, normally she watches the news so she can get the weather before she goes to work. I turned it off. She goes, no, turn that back on. And she got home from work and was like, how was the movie? Like, she never does that. And so it's but then you look at the films, and so you say, okay, how can Derek put Thor Ragnarok on this list? Well, Thor Ragnarok doesn't elicit the same conversation.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. The emotional points in Thor Ragnarok didn't really connect. So I think Derek felt like they didn't connect in favor of comedy, but I feel like the plot of Thor Ragnarok itself was just kind of paper thin anyway. Like at the end of the day, it's essentially villain shows up to varying degree. We all know Marvel has a problem with villains, so it really just comes down to who's performing them. Villain shows,
which Hela was a great
really
villain, and I think that's part of why it sucks that the plot was so paper thin, because you finally have a very strong villain, and on top of that, she's a female villain at that. And I think Kate Blanchett did an amazing job, but she was underused.
And it was the same story as before. It's like the villain shows up and they're hell bent on world domination, and someone has to stop it. And that's the story of this, to the point where I think of the franchise, the Thor movies for me have been the weakest, because they don't play out as the Shakespearean play that they should be. Thor's story is the story of Hamlet. He's the more dramatic. Like, there's so much depth to this idea of he just idolizes his dad, but he's also subjected to him, and then his brother's jealous of him, but he also really kind of looks up. Like, there's so much there, which is why when you see the best parts of Thor Ragnarok, people would say is the Hulk, but really it always has been watching Thor and Loki just have conversation. Just seeing that relationship play out on screen, knowing that, wow, they really do have a love for each other, but also a genuine disdain for each other. And how are they going to rectify this? Like when Thor says, when he stands behind, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Thor Ragnarok, we're just going to go ahead and destroy it. When he stands beside, when he throws the hammer and he's standing behind Loki and he says, that hammer has to come back to my hand. You're wondering, would Thor really let this happen to Loki, right? Like, that moment is so tense. And then Loki snaps out of it, and Thor catches the hammer. And it's like, would he have or would he not? That is compelling stuff. Like, searchers...
Well, yeah. I love that. To go to that, they're showing you... one thing I did like about Thor Ragnarok is they're showing you the difference between humans and gods. Gods have... their convictions, they don't have emotions, they have convictions. And their convictions dictate what they do from day to day, and it takes a stronger conviction or adversary to cause them to shift what they're doing. But they eventually always come back to what it is. So with that, it's like Thor knew what Loki was going to do before he did it, and Loki did too.
Right.
And it's like they're slaves to their own convictions, whereas humans are slaves to their emotions.
Nice. I didn't think of it that way. Because for me, I'm watching it, and what I'm seeing is how much the gods in this universe are like humans, to the sense of they are supposed to be perfect. They are supposed to be infallible. They're supposed to, like, Odin's supposed to rule with an iron fist. But even with this movie, with Thor Ragnarok, and the more we talk about this, the better the film is going to become. We learned that at some point in his past, Odin was a tyrant. Odin wasn't this all-loving all-father that we know. Him and his daughter Hela was like out there kicking ass, right? And so it's like, even with that, it impels that this God who, for the films that we've seen him in, he's been one thing. He's shifted in the past. He was more, so something came along and made him go, you know what? I need to do this in a more benevolent way. I need to be the benevolent king who rules with love and order, and not with this. So even that,
and they allude to it that it was his wife that changed everything.
And see, and that's the compelling love story that works, because if that came, if that's the result of that, then that informs her character more. That makes her death even more impactful in the last film. So
I love that you say. I love that you speak so loquaciously.
I try, man.
And I love that you use the epic convention of informing opinions, informing character, informing plot, because those are the things we need. Those signals to fire. So I love you keep transitioning to each point. So we just talked about, so to recap again, number 1 is about character development. Second one is plot development. The third one is unnecessary elements being put in that kind of convolute the story. And then 4, we have the things that need to be in order to inform your understanding about what's happening next so that you can have buy-in into the resolution. And so let's go to Batman versus Superman. Even though that wasn't on the list, Justice League was. And so Justice League has the same issues, but it started with Batman versus Superman, and a lot more people know about it up until now, just knowing that based on how many people bought tickets, because less people bought tickets to this
Way
than that.
less, right.
So Batman versus Superman, the problem with that is that people felt like the story jumped around too much and was rushed. And what that all people are trying to say is that they're inarticulate enough to just say, I don't have enough information to know if I agree with what's happening.
That's it. Like, I don't know. They're relying on you to bring everything to the theater. They're relying on you to come to the theater with your knowledge of Batman, your knowledge of Superman. This is a movie that my wife and I argue about. These are 2 characters that we argue about constantly because I'm always on the side of you have to respect the writing. If the writing says that Batman can somehow find a way to beat Superman, then that's true for that universe, right? But most people coming to the theater didn't read comics. Most people coming to the theater are coming because they saw the animated series as a kid, or they've only seen the Batman movies. Batman's had 1 million movies at this point. So if you're expecting me to come to the theater and sit down and watch Batman versus Superman using my bank of what I know about Batman versus Superman, and then Batman and Superman, and then you flip that on its head, then it's like, all right, I'm in the theater, and the first thing I'm thinking is Batman doesn't kill, he doesn't use guns, and you're wanting me to think that because you're not showing me this Batman's origins, so you're wanting me to go off of what I know about Batman already. And then you show me Batman standing with a rifle, and he has a 50 caliber machine gun in the Batmobile, killing indiscriminately. And it's like, okay, now you need to make me understand this Batman for me to understand why he has a problem with anything Superman is doing, as opposed to, like, honestly, it felt like that movie should have been the other way around. It should have been Superman hunting down Batman. But then that's not a compelling story because everyone's like, you've already established Superman can hear everything on the planet. He knows who everyone is. So it suffered because it's exactly that. It's like, I don't know. Yeah. And I don't fully understand why Batman has a problem with Superman in this universe.
Let's go there. Okay, because you said a lot of stuff, and I want to kind of package it because I agree with you 100%. So so again, we're talking about informing our opinion and our understanding. And you said, I'm seeing Batfleck do things that I don't understand. If you're expecting me to bring my knowledge of Batman to the theater, then I need you to jock with what I have saved up in my memory banks about what Batman does. And I'm seeing Batman do things that I'm not seeing him really do before, or at least not in the incarnations. And keep in mind, he's doing this all under the understanding that I'm a superhero because my parents got killed when I was a kid. Right. Spoiled brat much, especially in an era where we're talking about people being entitled. Yes, definitely. And people feeling like, that they're dictating what other people should do and feel. The reason why Christopher Nolan's incarnation of Batman was so much better in The Dark Knight and in Batman Begins in particular is that Christian Bale's Batman isn't just motivated by his parents. His initial depression starts with his parents being dead, but what brings it back up and makes it a fresh wound all over again is just as he's becoming an adult and he's learning to deal with it, they finally catch the dude and he's in trial. And he knows he's guilty, and everyone else in the room knows he's guilty. And then a mobster comes in, pays for his lawyer fees, and he gets off. Right.
So that establishes,
it establishes corruption within the city that his parents helped build.
Right. So it's twofold at this point.
Inside the building that his dad probably paid money to build, with men who are judges that probably went to school with his father, people who come to his parties every year, because we see this later on. They come to his parties at his house during the Ra's al Ghul scene. All of these people are in his house, and he even has a monologue like, all of these sycophants that are in my house.
Get the hell out.
Get the hell out.
Right.
You know, it's like he's not just motivated by his parents dying. He's motivated by his parents being the soul of Gotham itself, and they died trying to protect Gotham, killed by a man they were trying to save.
You should write movies, man. That is exactly what that is. And it's like, so with now going to Ben Affleck's Batman, who I personally love his performance, but it's like what
they start off the movie with the same old diatribe with the pearls getting ripped off, and it's like, we've seen this story before. Give us something else. Or again, like you just said, like Nolan did, build on this idea of, okay, yes, it's also this, but it's also this, because things can be two things, right? Like Batman can really love his parents and also really see the injustice in Gotham, and both of those can be motivating factors. And I think I don't know. It's just, the bottom line is we're accustomed to more dynamic storytelling now. So when you give us a very basic plot, it's almost like, I reject this. I reject it on principle. I personally, it's weird because I see the merits of Batman versus Superman. I can see what's good about it, and what's really good about it really stands out to me, but I can also see what everyone complains about. And those things are often the same thing, right? Like, I like that this Batman is different. I like that, you know, he's doing things because I don't want to see the same Batman over and over, but I understand that people don't like it because I don't understand why he's this Batman. I don't get, and then to now, you're right, I do jump around a lot. To now add in this Batman that we've seen in Justice League, he's not even the same guy. I love this because you did exactly what I was going to do next. So you take the broken film that everyone agrees, even the studio agreed that the film is broken, and then you use that as the foundation for the Hall of Justice.
Yeah.
And you expect people to go and watch that and to love it. You got a lot of work.
These characters deserve more, man. They deserve more. Like, I think historically, I've said Superman to me is a boring character because he's perfect. But Man of Steel actually changed my mind on Superman because for the first time, I saw the conflict in Superman. I actually saw, holy shit, he's human. Like, he has human emotion. I never saw it in the comics. I never seen it in the cartoons. All of his video games suck. But in Man of Steel, I was like, I get it. So the grumpy Superman the grumpy Superman that everyone hates, I'm looking at like Heavy is the head that wears the crown. Like, it's almost the Peter Parker Great Responsibility thing, but it weighs on Superman heavily. And then
I agree 100% that they had the beginnings of something great, in that they kind of went toward, if you saw Superman, you would think he was a god.
Yes. That's it.
Let's go with that.
Yeah, and it's like, and so to now fast forward it all the way through the film. So to go through Suicide Squad, to go through Batman vs. Superman, to go through Wonder Woman, and get the Batman and Superman that we got in Justice League. Guys, this is, 6 months later? Like, it's not enough time for Batman. So we're talking about Batman. Batman is the ultimate idea of human conviction. For the past 20 years, he's been in Gotham City fighting criminals because of these one or two principles. And then in 6 months, his whole mind changes about how he feels about Superman, the guilt that he has about Superman's death, which is so contrived. Why does Batman feel guilty about Superman's death in this movie? Like, what did he do? What did Batman do in that movie at all that would say, you know what, I can see why he'd be carrying that weight around on him? So it's oh my God, and I wanted to.
There needed to be a scene where Steppenwolf grabbed Batman around the throat, or comes to recruit Batman and says, "You are the most ruthless human being that exists. You killed the savior of this world." There needed to be something where he legitimately is trying to recruit Batman, and Batman is like, "Holy shit, what did I do?"
Yes, exactly.
Oh no. Dear God.
Exactly.
What did I do? Like, there needed to be a scene where we're like, oh, that's why he feels sorry for doing this.
Like, they're just having they're having a hard time with resolution, because what they're doing is they're wanting to tell complete stories in each movie, but also continue this universe, which everyone is doing now. But the truth of the matter is, even though it sucked, you resolved Batman and Superman's conflict in the second act of Batman versus Superman. By the end of the movies, we have the same mother, and I'm a friend of your son's, and I wear a cape because he wears a cape. So to then go into the next movie and have this conflict where Batman is like, I'm responsible for Superman's death, it's like, you guys cleared your stuff up in the last film. You can't reopen that wound now. And I think they're just stumbling out of the block, man. And it just feels like there's a more compelling story here to tell. It's there. And
Which brings us, you're doing this so well, man.
Bro.
So glad to have you on the podcast.
I'm glad to be here.
Which brings us to our fifth and final point. So we started off with what makes a great film or breaks a great film is plot, is character development, viable plot and development of that. 3 is unnecessary things being added to the plot that don't serve it whatsoever. And then 4, the right triggers that inform our understanding of about what's supposed to be happening so that there's buy-in toward the end goal. And 5th, what makes a terrible film or makes a great film is the ability to recognize when all 4 of those other things are happening and then either stop the bleeding and fix it or go forward with the film with all 4 of those things happening, and it creates this 5th anomaly of it being a mess and different interpretations of the film. And Batman versus Superman in particular, as well as All Eyes on Me, there's different interpretations about what the film is about, and no one can agree. That's different from Star Wars, from Wizard of Oz, from Gone with the Wind. These are films, Roots. These are films, you name a great classic film, and everyone will tell you
universal themes.
If you ask them, what's
universal themes? Everyone can tell you.
Lack of universal themes.
Everyone can tell you this is about civil rights. This one is about a girl trying to get back home, being lost in the wilderness and not appreciating her family and learning to do it. Everyone can rattle these things off because they're honestly at this point they're part of our collective consciousness. We are, even if you haven't seen Wizard of Oz, somehow you've seen the Wizard of Oz, and people walk away from Batman versus Superman and go, "Oh, it was about Batman versus Superman." No, it was about Lex Luthor creating Doomsday. No, it's about and it's like it's all and it is, but there's no overall theme there.
And you used a word and idea earlier about what our podcast does is sometimes our ideas can be polarizing. Yes. And the thing about polarizing is people love that because it's a provocative word. It gets the people going.
Nobody knows what it means. People
think, oh, if it's polarizing, it's a good thing. Polarizing is only good when there's resolution. Yes. It's dissonance. Dissonance in music is when you play different sounds that are a bit of a cacophony against one another, and you sustain them long enough for a person to say, I need it to resolve. Right. And then it resolves, and it's like, okay, that feels good. Or what makes it enticing is when it doesn't resolve. But the problem with a blockbuster film is it has to come to a universal theme. It has to come to a universal understanding so that the masses can purchase tickets and purchase them again and again. And if it's too polarizing, only half or a third of the people will happen, which is why the blockbuster films that we're talking about end up not doing so well. Flat. And that brings the whole subject of what we're talking about full circle. So if you've listened to this episode of the podcast and you don't understand what makes a great film or a terrible film in 2017, grab some baby powder, put it on your hand, and smack the shit out of yourself. Exactly, because I just brought on a masterful marketing expert and visual artist who just told you how to do media and movies the player way.
I love saying that.
Exactly. So shouts out, as always, to my co-captains Nate and Derreck, even though they're not here, and a special thanks to Jay Daniel for coming on my show today. You made it scrumptious, sir.
I appreciate that, brother. I appreciate it being here, man. This is like I said, it's fun to talk about film because I am a cinephile. I just learned that word the other day. That's one of the good kind of fouls you can be. There are a few fouls out there you shouldn't be.
Oh yeah, we don't want to.
Yeah, so to sit.
Man, I am hungry.
Exactly. So to sit and be able to kind of discuss these films and this year in film. And let me ask you this before we get off, because I personally, I know you guys, we're in the end of the year stage. Overall, what was your thoughts on 2017's film, and what is your outlook for 2018? Just your overall quick little.
So I think 2017 was the year of development hell coming to roost. I think All Eyes on Me, Wonder Woman, Alien Covenant, Power Rangers, Valerian, The Mummy. A lot of these films were films that were announced
years ago.
When they were announced before Civil War came out.
Yep.
And before D23 happened, and you got to see all of the films that Disney was coming out with, and before Daisy Ridley joined the whole Star Wars family. So, like, a lot of these films were films that have been talked about for over a decade about being created, and studios are like, finally green-light it, because superhero movies are the thing to do right now. Go, make, sell. And I think studios are going to be a whole lot more cautious in 2018, and they have been, about developing and releasing stuff. I think as we move closer and closer toward Disney buying another conglomerate and becoming even more powerful, I think people are going to be a lot more careful in how they do things.
Okay.
And how, and my point in that is, you can see where Fox intentionally took a risk on both Logan and Deadpool, so that they could do their own thing in hopes of getting bought, possibly, or doing their own thing.
Right.
And I think you're going to see more and more studios say, the way to make it is to learn from Marvel, because the source material is all there. The reason why Marvel's doing so well in their studios is because they stick to the source material and they don't deviate from it. And the more and more you deviate from what Stan Lee and Avi Arad and all these other people did, the less and less insurance that it's going to work you have. So in 2018, I think we're going to be less bombarded with trash, and I think we're going to get a lot more. And mainly because we got some heavy hitters coming this summer.
Really do.
And people don't want to be anywhere near it.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. But until next time, no matter what path you take or streets you decide to walk down, make sure you're doing it the player way. Jay.
No problem.
And I want to end with you plugging your plug-in. I mean, you came on the show, plug your product,
all right, perfect.
bro.
So, again, like BK said, Beak, as I like to call him, I'm Jay Daniel, graphic design photographer, marketing, brand strategy. I do a podcast as well, so I'm going to give you guys the rundown. First off, if you want to find me anywhere online, it's Jay Daniel is my @ which is ITSJAY Daniel. My podcast is The Dreamer's Blueprint, which the website is thedreamersblueprint.com. A little podcast that I like to say is for people who have more ideas in their head than hair on top of it. I do like saying that. I'm going to keep saying it. And I would love to speak more with you guys, man. I would love to be on this show again. This has been fun. Like, since you...
Oh, you'll be back. You'll be back.
Because I got to argue with you guys, man. I got to duke it out with them. But since the inception of this show, I've been just kind of in awe, because I've worked with you before, and I know your attention to detail and your passion for it. And so to see you guys are now on what's this episode? We might in our 40s, 50s now?
It's going to be episode 30 on our next episode.
And so to see it come this far, and it only gets better week to week. So I'm humbled and I'm honored to be here. And that's that. I'm the weirdo guy with the afro. I'm all over the place. So it's Jay Daniel. Look me up, hit me up, send me a message, tell me some crazy stuff I said on here that didn't make sense, and we can have this conversation. Thanks for having me, Beak.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on, man. We're going to wrap that up just like that. Let's roll credits. See y'all next week.
I love it.
Thanks for listening to the Player Way podcast. Recorded in a single take from Los Angeles, California, Dallas, Texas, and Atlanta, Georgia, by Nathan Petersen, Derreck Lewis, and BK Jackson.
And I'm Darren Marlar, the majestic voice of the Player Way podcast.
Our opening theme is titled Bound by Ricky Remedy, courtesy of Elysian Records. And our closing theme is titled Coconut King Diaries by Xander, spelled Zahnder. You can find this music by both Ricky Remedy and Xander, and many more tracks on SoundCloud. And remember, no matter what choices you make or paths you follow, just make sure you do it the player way. See you next week.